My name is Liana. I'm 38 years old, and the man I once called my husband planned to steal everything I built. My penthouse, my company, my peace, everything I worked for, everything I sacrificed for, everything I built with my own 2 hands and my own bleeding heart. But instead of screaming or crying, instead of falling apart like he expected me to, I went silent, because silence, I learned, was the start of my revenge. Silence was my weapon when I had nothing else left. If you've ever been betrayed by someone who thought you'd fall apart, if you've ever been underestimated by the person who promised to stand beside you, like, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from. Because this story, this painful, terrible, beautiful story, is my calm before the storm. And I need you to hear it. I need someone to witness what happened to me, what I survived, what I became. Let me take you back to before everything shattered, back to when I still believed in us, in him, in the life we were supposed to build together. I built my design firm from scratch. Do you understand what that means? From nothing. From sitting at a cheap desk in a studio apartment, cold calling potential clients until my voice went hoarse. From maxing out credit cards to buy my first samples. From working 18-hour days until my hands cramped and my eyes burned. I did that. Not we, not us, me. And that penthouse, that beautiful penthouse, overlooking the city with floor-to-ceiling windows that caught the sunrise every morning, that was mine too. I bought it with money I earned. Every single cent came from my work, my vision, my sleepless nights. When I got the keys to that place, I stood in the empty living room and cried. I cried because I had made it. I had actually made it. I remember the exact moment I knew I wanted it. I was still living in my modest apartment, still building the business, and I went to a client meeting in that building. When I walked into the lobby with its marble floors and crystal chandeliers, I thought, someday, I'll live here. And I made it happen. 2 years later, I signed the papers. My name, my money, my dream realized. Daniel was there that day. He was my husband by then, had been for 3 years. And when we walked into that empty penthouse for the first time as mine, he picked me up and spun me around and told me how proud he was. "You did it, baby," he said. "You actually did it." His eyes were shining, and I thought that shine was pride. I thought it was love. I didn't recognize it yet as envy. He was once my biggest cheerleader. I want you to know that. This isn't a story about a man who was always terrible. Those stories are easier, somehow. When someone is a monster from the start, you can see it coming. But Daniel wasn't like that. When we met, I was just starting my business, and he was working in finance, doing well enough, stable, supportive. He would bring me coffee when I worked late. He would tell his friends about my projects, showing off my designs on his phone like they were his own children. "This is what my girlfriend made," he'd say, his voice full of genuine amazement. "Isn't she incredible?" And I loved him for that. God, I loved him so much for seeing me, for believing in me when I barely believed in myself. We got married in a small ceremony, just close friends and family. Nothing extravagant, because I was pouring every dollar into the business. He said he didn't care about a big wedding. "I just want you," he told me, and I believed him. I believed every word. But something shifted. Slowly at first, so slowly I didn't notice it happening. My business started taking off, really taking off. I landed a contract with a major hotel chain, then a celebrity client, then another. My income doubled, then tripled. Suddenly, I was the primary earner in our household. No, not even primary. I was earning almost everything. And Daniel, his finance job was steady, but it wasn't growing. He was good at what he did, but he wasn't exceptional. He was comfortable, and comfortable doesn't make you rich. It doesn't get you penthouses and profiles in design magazines. He stopped celebrating my wins the moment they outshone his. I'll never forget the night I came home, bursting with excitement, because I'd just signed the biggest contract of my career. A complete redesign of a boutique hotel in Manhattan. High six figures. I ran into our apartment, waving the signed contract, ready to pop the champagne we'd been saving. "Daniel, baby, I got it. I actually got the Bellamy contract." He was sitting on the couch, laptop open, tie loosened. He looked up at me, and for just a second, just a flash, I saw something in his eyes that made my stomach drop. But then he smiled, and I told myself I'd imagined it. "That's great, babe," he said. His voice was flat. "Great? It's incredible. This is going to change everything for us." "For us," he repeated. "Right. What does that mean?" "Nothing. I'm happy for you. I'm just tired." But he wasn't just tired. I know that now. He was starting to resent me, starting to see my success as his failure, starting to keep score in a game I didn't even know we were playing. That's when he started calling it our penthouse. Even though he contributed nothing to the down payment, even though my name alone was on the deed, even though his paycheck barely covered his car payment and his expensive dinners with clients who never materialized into anything. "Come by our place after work," he'd tell his friends. "We're thinking of redecorating our living room," he'd say to my face, as if he had any right to that we. At first, I thought it was sweet. Isn't that what marriage is? What's mine is yours, what's yours is mine. I wanted to share everything with him. I wanted our life to be a partnership. But it wasn't partnership he wanted. It was ownership. There's a difference, and I learned it too late. His business started failing around the time I bought the penthouse. He'd been trying to start his own investment consulting firm, and it just never took off. He'd meet with potential clients who never signed. He'd pour money into marketing that never yielded returns. And the more he failed, the more he looked at what I'd built with something ugly in his eyes. I tried to be supportive. God knows I tried. I offered to help with his business plan. I introduced him to my contacts. I even offered to invest in his company, but he refused. Said he didn't want my charity. His pride wouldn't let him accept help from his wife, but it would let him steal from her. That irony doesn't escape me. I remember one night, we were getting ready for bed in the penthouse. In the master bedroom, with its view of the glittering city below. I was taking off my jewelry at the vanity, and I caught him watching me in the mirror. Not with love, not with desire, with calculation. "What are you thinking about?" I asked. "Just how far you've come," he said. "We've come," I corrected, trying to include him, trying to make him feel part of my success. "Right. We?" That moment haunts me now. Because I heard the bitterness, but I chose to ignore it. I chose to believe that love would be enough, that if I just kept supporting him, kept loving him, kept trying to make him feel valued, everything would be okay. I was so stupid, so desperately, painfully stupid. It was a Tuesday night. I'll never forget that. A regular Tuesday, nothing special about it. I came home early from a client meeting that ended sooner than expected. Daniel didn't hear me come in because he was in his office with the door mostly closed on the phone. I was going to call out to him, but something in his tone made me stop. He was speaking quietly, urgently, and I heard my name. Once it's under my name, I can handle the sale. My blood went cold. I stood frozen in the hallway, my keys still in my hand, not breathing, just listening. She trusts me. She'll sign whatever I put in front of her if I frame it right. Tax purposes, asset protection, whatever. She doesn't pay attention to that stuff. A pause. He was listening to whoever was on the other end. "No, she won't suspect anything. She's been busy with that project in Brooklyn. She barely knows what day it is half the time." My legs felt weak. I wanted to burst in there, to scream, to demand an explanation. but something kept me still. Some instinct for self-preservation I didn't know I had. The penthouse alone should clear most of my debts, and if I can get access to her business accounts. Look, I'm not saying it's ideal, but I'm in a corner here. You don't understand the kind of pressure I'm under. I backed away slowly, quietly, until I reached the front door. I opened it and closed it again, loudly this time. Daniel? I'm home. My voice sounded normal. I don't know how I managed that. I heard scrambling, a door opening. He appeared in the hallway, smiling. The same smile I'd fallen in love with 6 years ago. Hey, babe, you're home early. Meeting wrapped up. Who were you talking to? Oh, just my lawyer. Boring stuff. Boring stuff. He lied so easily, so smoothly, like he'd been practicing. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay next to him in our bed, in my penthouse, listening to him breathe, and I felt like I was lying next to a stranger. No, worse, a thief, a traitor. He was broke. I knew his business wasn't doing well, but I didn't know how bad it had gotten. Over the next few days, I started paying attention, really paying attention. Credit card bills came that he hurried to hide. Phone calls he took in other rooms. His stress levels, which I'd attributed to normal business struggles, suddenly looked like the panic of a desperate man. I started investigating. Carefully, quietly. I checked our joint account and found he'd been withdrawing large sums of cash. I looked at his desk when he was in the shower and saw past due notices from creditors. His car was about to be repossessed. He owed back taxes. His business owed money to vendors, to contractors, to the IRS. He was drowning in debt, and he planned to use my penthouse as his life raft. The worst part came 2 weeks later. His sister Victoria came for dinner. I'd never liked Victoria much. She had this entitled air about her, like the world owed her something just for existing. But Daniel loved her, so I tolerated her. We were having wine in the living room, my living room, surrounded by furniture I'd chosen and art I'd collected. Daniel stepped out to take a call, and Victoria leaned over to me with this conspiratorial smile. You know, Daniel's been having a tough time, she said. I know. I'm trying to support him through it. That's good. That's what wives do. She sipped her wine. He told me he's finally going to put his name on this place. About time, honestly. My hand tightened around my glass. Excuse me? The penthouse. He said you're transferring it to joint ownership. Or maybe just his name? I don't remember exactly. But either way, it's only fair. A man should have something in his own name, you know? It's emasculating otherwise. I wanted to throw my wine in her face. I wanted to scream, but I just smiled. Is that what he said? Well, yeah. I mean, you can't expect him to live in a place that's entirely yours forever. What if something happens? He deserves security too. Honestly, Liana, I think you've been a little selfish about this. It's been your name, your business, your everything. Marriage is supposed to be partnership. Partnership. That word again. Twist it into something ugly. You're right, I said. My voice was calm. Marriage should be partnership. She looked satisfied, like she'd educated me on something I was too stupid to understand on my own. When she left that night, Daniel walked her to the elevator, and I heard her whisper to him. I talked to her about the house thing, softened her up for you. He murmured something back, and they laughed together. They laughed about stealing my home, about manipulating me, about destroying everything I'd built. It wasn't a mistake. It was a plan, a calculated, deliberate plan to rob me of everything I'd worked for. That night, after Daniel fell asleep, I got out of bed and stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of my penthouse. The city stretched out below me, a million lights in the darkness. I'd fought so hard to get here. I'd sacrificed so much. And the man sleeping in my bed, wearing the watch I'd bought him for his birthday, was plotting to take it all away. I didn't cry. I was done crying. Something else was rising in me now. Something cold and clear and furious. I became a detective in my own life. Every moment Daniel wasn't looking, I was searching, documenting, preparing. I found the documents first. He'd been careless, or maybe he just didn't think I'd ever look. In his office, in a folder labeled Tax Documents 2019, I found the real plan. There were draft transfer deeds, paperwork to put the penthouse in his name alone, not even joint ownership, just his. There were printouts of the penthouse's current market value, estimates from real estate agents about how quickly it could sell, a breakdown of his debts and how the sale would cover them with money left over. He'd even planned where he would move after, a cheaper apartment across town. There was no mention of me in any of it, no plan for us, just him, escaping the wreckage of his failures on my dime. I found emails, too. Him to his lawyer. She's sentimental about the place, but I think I can convince her it's a smart financial move. She trusts my judgment on money stuff. I almost laughed at that. I'd built a multi-million-dollar business, and he thought I was stupid about money? Him to Victoria. Once I'm clear of this debt, I can start fresh. Maybe I'll finally get the respect I deserve, instead of being Mr. Liana Westbrook. That one hurt, because it revealed the truth. He didn't love me anymore, if he ever really had. He resented me. He hated that I was successful. He hated that I'd become the breadwinner. He hated that when we went to events, people knew my name and not his. His male ego couldn't handle being married to a woman who out-earned him, who outshone him, who had built something he never could. And instead of celebrating me, instead of being proud of what we could accomplish together, he decided to tear me down, to rob me, to betray me. I copied everything, every document, every email, every text message I could find. I uploaded them to a secure cloud account he didn't know about. I took photos. I documented dates and times. And through it all, I said nothing. Every morning, I woke up next to him and kissed him goodbye like nothing was wrong. Every evening, I came home and asked about his day. We had dinner together. We watched TV. We went through the motions of a marriage that was already dead, and he had no idea I knew. The hardest part was the physical intimacy. There were nights he reached for me, and I had to make a choice. Push him away and raise suspicion, or let the man who was planning to destroy me touch me like he loved me. I chose survival. I chose strategy. And I hated myself for it, but I did what I had to do. There was one night, about 3 weeks after I'd discovered everything, when I almost broke. We were in bed, and he was scrolling on his phone, and I just looked at him, really looked at him. At this man I'd married, who I'd trusted with everything. "Do you love me?" I asked. He didn't even look up from his phone. "Of course I do. Why would you ask that?" "I don't know. Sometimes I feel like we're drifting apart." Now he looked at me, and for a second, I thought maybe he'd tell the truth. Maybe he'd confess everything and we could figure this out. "We're fine, Liana. You're just stressed from work. Maybe you should take a break. Go to a spa or something." A spa. He thought a massage would fix the marriage he was actively destroying. "Maybe you're right," I said. He smiled and went back to his phone, probably texting his lawyer about how to steal my life. Late at night, when he was asleep, I would stand at those windows again, looking out at the city, at my city, at everything I'd conquered. And I would make promises to myself. He thought I was weak because I stayed quiet. He thought my silence meant ignorance, meant submission, meant he was getting away with it. But he didn't know that quiet women write the deadliest endings. My silence wasn't weakness. It was strategy. It was preparation. It was the calm before I unleashed a storm he never saw coming. I stopped sleeping much. How could I? I was lying next to my enemy, in my own home, waiting for him to make his move so I could make mine. I started having imaginary conversations with him in my head. screaming all the things I couldn't say out loud yet. How could you? I loved you. I trusted you. I would have given you anything if you'd just asked, just been honest. But you chose to lie. You chose to steal. You chose to betray the one person who stood by you when everyone else gave up. But I said, none of it. Not yet. Because the moment I confronted him, he'd know I knew. And he'd either accelerate his plan or abandon it and try something else. I needed him to feel safe, to think he was winning. So I played the role of the oblivious wife, the successful businesswoman who was too busy to notice her husband's betrayal, the trusting partner who would sign whatever papers he put in front of her. And while I played that role, I was building my own plan, piece by piece, step by step. I found a new lawyer, not the one Daniel and I had used for our wills and estate planning, someone he didn't know, couldn't know. Her name was Margaret Chen, and she was a shark in a designer suit. I sat in her office on a Tuesday afternoon, Daniel thinking I was at a site visit, and I laid out everything, every document, every email, every piece of evidence. Margaret listened without interrupting, her face impassive. When I finished, she sat back in her chair and looked at me with something like respect. "You've been thorough," she said. "I had to be. What do you want? Divorce? Prosecution? I want everything. I want my penthouse secure. I want my business protected. I want him to understand what he tried to do, what he lost. Revenge. Justice," I corrected. "There's a difference." She smiled. "Yes, there is. And you're entitled to both." We spent the next 2 hours going through everything. She explained what we could do legally, what we needed to prepare for, how to protect myself completely. First, the penthouse. It was already in my name, but we needed to make it bulletproof. We filed additional documentation. We put legal protections in place. We made it impossible for him to claim any ownership or rights to it. Second, my business. I'd been careful to keep it separate from our marriage, but there were some joint accounts, some commingled funds. We untangled everything. I opened new bank accounts he didn't know about. I transferred my business assets. I built a wall between what was mine and what he could touch. Third, evidence for the divorce. Because yes, I was going to divorce him. Not yet, but soon. And when I did, I wanted to make sure he got nothing. In our state, marriage made some things complicated, but Margaret assured me that his fraudulent intent, his planning to steal from me, would work in our favor. "He planned to commit fraud against you," she said. "Document everything. If he approaches you with papers to sign, record it if you can. We need to show intent." I left her office feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Powerful. At home, I started preparing in other ways too. Small things Daniel wouldn't notice. I went through the penthouse and photographed everything. Every piece of furniture, every artwork, every custom fixture. I documented what was mine, what I'd bought before the marriage, what I'd purchased during. I created an inventory of my entire life. I boxed up sentimental items, photos from my childhood, jewelry from my grandmother, documents and mementos that mattered to me. I stored them at a secure facility. If things went wrong, if he moved faster than I anticipated, I wanted my irreplaceable items safe. I also started emotionally detaching. That was the hardest part. We'd been together for 6 years, married for 4. That's a lot of history, a lot of memories. There were good times once. There was real love, or at least I thought there was. I had to mourn the marriage while still living in it. I had to grieve the man I thought he was while looking at the man he actually was. One night, I was going through our wedding album. We looked so happy in those photos. I was wearing a simple white dress, holding a bouquet of peonies, smiling like I'd won the lottery. And Daniel, in his gray suit, looking at me like I was the only person in the world. Was any of it real? Or was I always just a means to an end for him? a successful woman he could latch onto, ride her coattails, and then drain dry when it suited him. I closed the album and put it in one of the boxes to store. That version of us was dead. Had been dead for a while, probably. I just hadn't wanted to see it. I also started changing our dynamic in subtle ways, pulling back emotionally. When he talked about his day, I listened but didn't engage as much. When he tried to discuss our future plans, I was non-committal. "We should think about getting a vacation property," he said one night over dinner. "Maybe something upstate, an investment. An investment in his name, no doubt. Another thing to steal and sell." "Maybe," I said. "I'm pretty stretched thin right now with the business." "You're always stretched thin with the business." There was an edge to his voice, resentment creeping in. "It's how I built everything we have," I said sweetly. "Everything you have, you mean?" There it was, the truth slipping out. "I thought what's mine was ours," I said, echoing his own words back at him. He backtracked. "Of course, that's what I meant. Ours." But we both knew better now. I also prepared practically. I had a bag packed with essentials, kept in my office at work. Clothes, toiletries, copies of important documents, cash. If I needed to leave quickly, I could. I lined up a place to stay, a friend's apartment she barely used. I told her I might need it for a few weeks, that Daniel and I were having problems. She didn't ask questions, just gave me the key. I was building an escape route, a safety net, a contingency plan for every possible scenario. And through it all, I pretended. God, I became such a good actress. Academy Award-worthy performances every single day. "How was your day, honey? Do you want to watch that show we started? I love you." That last one tasted like poison in my mouth, but I said it because he expected it, because I needed him complacent. He said it back, and I wondered if he felt anything at all, or if he was just as much of an actor as I'd become. There was a night when I was getting ready for bed, and I caught sight of myself in the bathroom mirror. I looked the same. Same face, same body, same hair. But my eyes were different, harder, colder, more knowing. I'd changed. This betrayal had fundamentally changed who I was. The trusting, open-hearted woman who'd married Daniel was gone. In her place was someone more careful, more guarded, more strategic. I mourned her too, the woman I used to be, the one who believed in love and partnership and happily ever after. But I also recognized that the new me was stronger, a survivor, a fighter. I put my wedding ring in my jewelry box one night, just took it off and set it down next to my company keys. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. My marriage and my business side by side. One dying, one thriving. Daniel noticed the next morning. "Where's your ring?" "Oh, I took it off to put on lotion last night and forgot to put it back on. I slipped it on my finger, the metal feeling foreign now, like a shackle." He seemed satisfied with that answer. I wasn't packing to leave. Not yet. I was packing to rebuild, to rise from the ashes of this marriage stronger and freer. And I was waiting for Daniel to make his move so I could make mine. The dinner party was Daniel's idea. He wanted to host a small gathering at the Penthouse. "Just a few friends," he said. "It's been a while since we entertained." I knew what it really was, a performance, a chance for him to play Lord of the Manor in a manner that wasn't his, a way to assert ownership before he legally stole it. But I said yes, because I wanted to see how far he'd go, how shameless he could be. We invited 8 people. His sister Victoria and her husband, 2 of his business school friends and their wives, and 1 of his potential clients. Not a single person from my life. Not my friends, not my colleagues. This was his show. I spent the day of the party preparing. I hired caterers, bought expensive wine, made sure everything was perfect. If this was going to be a performance, I'd give them something to remember. I wore a black dress. Simple, elegant, expensive. My armor. The guests arrived, and Daniel greeted them like he owned the place, which, in his mind, he probably already did. Welcome, welcome. Come in, let me give you the tour. The tour of my penthouse. That I bought with my money. I stood in the kitchen with a glass of wine, listening to him guide people through the rooms. This is the living room. We just had that couch custom made, and the art on that wall is an original. Cost a fortune, but you know how it is. We. Victoria found me in the kitchen. She was wearing too much perfume and a smug smile. Liana, darling, you've outdone yourself. This place looks amazing. Thank you. You know, you're so lucky to have Daniel. A lot of men wouldn't be comfortable living in a place their wife bought, but he's so secure, so modern. He doesn't let his ego get in the way. I almost laughed. His ego was the only thing driving any of this. He's something, all right, I said. Dinner was a nightmare. We sat at my dining table, eating food I'd arranged, drinking wine I'd bought, and I watched Daniel hold court like a king. So, Daniel, one of his friends said, how's the business going? It's been challenging, Daniel admitted. But I'm working on some big moves. Things are about to turn around in a major way. Yes, I thought. By stealing my home. That's great, man. You deserve a win. We all do, Daniel said, raising his glass. To wins. Everyone drank. I barely sipped. Then Victoria, ever the helpful sister, decided to chime in. Liana, Daniel was telling me you've been so busy with work, you barely have time for anything else. My work is important to me, I said. Of course. But don't you think it's time to slow down a bit? Enjoy what you've built? Let Daniel take the lead on some things? The lead on what? Well, you know, managing the household, the finances, the big picture stuff. You're so focused on your little design projects that you might miss the forest for the trees. Little design projects. My multi-million-dollar business was little design projects. I set down my fork carefully. My little design projects paid for this penthouse, this dinner, and that wine you're drinking, Victoria. The table went quiet. She laughed nervously. I didn't mean it like that. I just meant, well, you know what I meant. I don't, actually. Why don't you explain? Daniel jumped in. Okay, let's not make this awkward. Liana, Victoria, was just trying to be helpful. Helpful how, exactly? She just thinks you work too hard. We all do. Maybe it's time to delegate more. Trust other people to handle things. Trust other people, like him, to handle my assets, my property, my life. I see, I said. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. Excuse me for a moment. I stood and walked to the bathroom, locking the door behind me. I stared at myself in the mirror, hands gripping the sink, breathing slowly. Let them laugh. The louder they laugh, the quieter I plan. When I returned to the table, Victoria was telling some story about a friend of hers who let her husband handle all the money stuff and was so much happier. The implication was clear. I should do the same. I should hand over control to Daniel and just be a pretty little decorator, making my little projects while the men handled the real business. After dinner, we moved to the living room. Daniel's potential client was there, a man named Richard, who apparently had money to invest. So, Daniel, Richard said, tell me about this consulting firm of yours. Daniel launched into his pitch. I'd heard it before. It was all buzzwords and empty promises. The kind of thing that sounded impressive if you didn't look too closely. And you run this business from home? Richard asked. For now, Daniel said. But I'm looking to expand. This place is just temporary. Just temporary. My penthouse. The culmination of years of work and sacrifice. Just temporary. Well, it's a hell of a temporary situation. Richard laughed. You've done well for yourself." "I have," Daniel agreed. "Not we, not us, not giving me any credit, just taking it all for himself." I watched him, this man I'd married, soaking up praise for a life he didn't build, in a home he didn't buy, surrounded by success he didn't earn. And I felt nothing. No love, no anger, no pain. Just cold, clear certainty. He had to go. The guests left around 11. Victoria hugged me on her way out, whispering, "Think about what I said. Let him help you more." When the door finally closed, Daniel turned to me, grinning. "That went well, don't you think?" "Sure." Richard seemed really interested. "I think he might invest." "Good for you. And it was nice to show off the place. We should do this more often." We, always we, claiming ownership of everything I'd built. "I'm tired," I said. "I'm going to bed." I left him in the living room, king of a castle that was never his. That night, lying in the dark, I made my final decision. I'd been gathering evidence, building my case, preparing my defense. But now it was time to go on offense. I wasn't just going to protect myself. I was going to make sure he understood exactly what he'd lost, what he'd thrown away, what he'd never deserved in the first place. The humiliation I'd felt tonight, the casual dismissal, the theft of credit, the assumption that I was too stupid or too busy to notice his plans, all of it crystallized into something sharp and focused. He thought I'd beg. He thought when he finally made his move, I'd cry and plead and eventually give in because I loved him, because I was weak, because women like me always folded. He had no idea who he was dealing with. The reversal. I moved faster than he did. That was his mistake. He was so confident in his plan, so sure I was oblivious, that he took his time, probably savoring it, enjoying the anticipation of his big win. While he plotted, I acted. First, I finalized everything with Margaret. We had all the legal protections in place. The penthouse was locked down tight. My business was secure. Our assets were completely separated. Then I filed for divorce. Not yet served, not yet public, but filed. Ready to go the moment I needed it. And then I planned my exit. Not me leaving, him leaving. There's a difference. I chose a Friday. Daniel had mentioned he'd be out of the office that day, working from home. Perfect. That morning, I woke up early. I dressed in all black blazer, pants, heels, my armor again. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked powerful, dangerous, ready. I kissed Daniel goodbye, like it was any other day. "Have a good day," he said, not looking up from his phone. "You too," I said. It was the last time I'd ever say that to him. I went to the office and coordinated everything. The movers were already on standby, waiting for my signal. The locksmith was ready. Margaret had all the paperwork prepared. At 10 o'clock, I made the call. It's time. At 10:30, I drove back to the penthouse. My penthouse. The movers were already there when I arrived. 3 large trucks, a team of professionals, all with their instructions. I took a deep breath and walked into the building. Used my key for what would be one of the last times. Stepped into the elevator, rose up to the penthouse level. The doors opened, and I could hear Daniel on a conference call in his office. Still pretending to have a business. Still pretending to be successful. I nodded to the movers. They began. It took Daniel about 5 minutes to notice. He came out of his office, confused. Phone still in his hand. "Liana? What's going on? Who are these people?" "Movers," I said calmly. "Movers? What are they moving?" "Everything." "What? Why? What are you talking about?" I pulled out the folder I'd been carrying. Inside were copies of everything. The documents he'd hidden, the emails he'd sent, the plans he'd made to steal from me. I handed it to him. You said I should move out. Remember? You told your lawyer I'd be easy to manipulate, that I'd sign whatever you put in front of me, that I was too busy to notice what you were doing. The color drained from his face as he opened the folder and saw the contents. How did you? You're not as clever as you think you are, Daniel. Liana, I can explain. Don't. My voice was ice. Don't insult me by lying anymore. I know everything. I've known for months. Months? He looked panicked now. You've known for months and didn't say anything? I was gathering evidence, building my case, making sure that when I moved, you couldn't counter. And I was waiting to see just how far you'd go. Turns out, pretty far. You were really going to do it. Steal my home. Sell it. Leave me with nothing. It's not like that. It's exactly like that. I have your emails, Daniel. Your texts with Victoria. Your consultation notes with your lawyer. I have everything. The movers continued working around us. They were removing furniture, taking down art, packing up my life. You can't do this, he said. This is my home, too. No, I corrected. It's not. It never was. My name is on the deed. My money bought it. You have no legal claim to any of this. We're married. That means something. It did, I said quietly. Once. Before you decided to rob me. Before you turned our marriage into a con. Before you invited your friends over to show off a home you were planning to steal. He ran his hand through his hair, pacing. Okay, I made some mistakes. I was desperate. The business is failing. I have debts. I didn't know what else to do. But we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can work this out. Counseling? I laughed, and it sounded bitter even to my own ears. You want to go to counseling after planning to commit fraud against me? I wasn't going to actually do it. Liar. I stepped closer to him. You were absolutely going to do it. You were just waiting for the right moment. Well, guess what? I found the right moment first. I pulled out another set of papers. Divorce papers. You're being served, I said. Consider it done. As for you moving out by the weekend, change of plans. You're coming with me, meaning you're leaving, right now. You can't kick me out. I can, actually, because this is my property, and I have a legal order right here that says you need to vacate immediately based on your threats of fraud. Margaret had worked magic with a sympathetic judge. Emergency order granted that morning. My stuff. You can take your personal belongings, your clothes, your laptop, your phone. Everything else stays because everything else is mine. The movers were efficient. Room by room, they emptied the penthouse of everything I'd bought, everything I valued. The custom couch, the art, the designer chairs, the handmade rug from Morocco, the dining table where we'd hosted his humiliating dinner party. Daniel watched, helpless, as my life was packed into trucks. Where are you even taking all this? None of your business. Liana, please, can we just talk about this? We're done talking. We've been done for a long time. I just didn't realize it until you decided to steal from me. Victoria called his phone. He answered, stepped away, spoke in hushed, urgent tones. I could imagine what she was saying. How dare I? Who did I think I was? I was the villain in their story, of course. The mean wife who wouldn't let her poor, struggling husband steal her penthouse. When he hung up, he looked at me with something new in his eyes. Hatred. You're really enjoying this, aren't you? This is some kind of revenge fantasy for you. No, I said. Revenge would be doing to you what you planned to do to me. This is just justice. I'm protecting what's mine, what I built, what you tried to take. The movers came out with my grandmother's chandelier, carefully wrapped and boxed. Even the chandelier? Daniel asked. Especially the chandelier. It's an heirloom. Did you really think I'd let you sell my grandmother's chandelier to pay your debts? I wasn't. Stop. Lying. He switched tactics then. Turned on the charm that had once worked on me. Liana, baby, I know I messed up. I know I made bad decisions. But we love each other, right? Doesn't that count for something? Can't we at least try to salvage this? I looked at him. Really looked at him. Tried to find the man I'd fallen in love with somewhere in there. But he was gone. Maybe he'd never existed. Do you love me, Daniel? Of course I do. Then why did you try to steal from me? I was desperate. That's not love. Love doesn't steal. Love doesn't lie. Love doesn't conspire with lawyers to commit fraud. Whatever we had, it's dead. You killed it. So that's it? Years together and you're just throwing it all away? I'm not the one who threw it away. You did. The moment you decided I was worth more to you as a victim than as a wife. The last item came out. A painting I'd bought at a small gallery years ago, before I'd even met Daniel. A watercolor of a woman standing at the edge of the ocean, facing a storm. I'd always loved that painting. Now I understood why. She was me, facing the storm, standing strong. Your belongings will be packed and sent to you, I said. You can stay in a hotel tonight. Or with Victoria, I'm sure she'd love to hear all about how mean I'm being. I can't afford a hotel. You know I'm broke. Not my problem anymore. Where am I supposed to go? Honestly, Daniel, I don't care. That was the moment he finally understood. I wasn't bluffing. I wasn't going to back down. I was really done. He grabbed my arm. You can't do this to me. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then up at his face. One of the movers stepped closer, protective. Let go, I said quietly. He did. Goodbye, Daniel. I walked out of the penthouse. My penthouse. Soon to be my former penthouse, because I was selling it. Too many bad memories now. But I was selling it on my terms, for my profit, for my future. He stood there, in the empty space, surrounded by nothing, and I felt relief. He thought I'd beg. Instead, he watched me erase him, piece by piece, item by item, memory by memory. The movers finished loading the trucks. I signed off on the paperwork, changed the locks, left the new keys with the building manager with instructions that Daniel was not authorized to enter. And then I drove away, following the moving trucks to the secure storage facility where I'd keep everything until I figured out my next move. In my rearview mirror, I could see the building getting smaller, the penthouse I'd loved, the home I'd built, the dream that had turned into a nightmare. I was leaving it behind, all of it, and I had never felt more free. The divorce was ugly. Of course it was. Daniel fought it, tried to claim he deserved half of everything. But Margaret was brutal and brilliant. She presented all the evidence of his fraud attempt, his plans to steal the penthouse, his conspiracy to sell my property and keep the money. The court was not sympathetic. He got nothing. Not half, not a settlement, nothing. The prenup we'd signed held up, and his attempted fraud voided any claims he might have had otherwise. His business collapsed completely. The few clients he had left abandoned him when word got out about what he'd tried to do. Nobody wants to trust their money to a man who tried to rob his own wife. His debts consumed him. Without my penthouse to steal and sell, he had no way to pay them. He declared bankruptcy, lost his car, moved into a studio apartment in a bad part of town. I heard all this through mutual acquaintances. I didn't seek the information out, but people love to gossip, especially about a dramatic fall from grace. Victoria cut ties with him. Turns out, her loyalty only extended as far as his usefulness. When he became an embarrassment, a cautionary tale, she wanted nothing to do with him. He tried to reach out to me a few times. Emails, texts, even a handwritten letter. All of them some variation of "I'm sorry," mixed with "it wasn't that bad." and you ruined my life. I blocked him everywhere. I had nothing left to say to him. Margaret advised me to keep everything, though. Every email, every text. If he escalates, we need documentation, she said. He didn't escalate. He just faded, became a ghost of his former self. Last I heard, he was working some mid-level job in a different city, living a life as small as his character. I sold the penthouse. I couldn't live there anymore, not after everything. But I sold it for a significant profit, which felt like a final victory. I took that money and moved, not across town, across the country. A new city, a new start, a fresh slate. I opened a new design firm. Bigger than before. Better than before. I hired a team of talented designers. We took on ambitious projects. We made a name for ourselves. Within 2 years, we were thriving. Featured in major design magazines, winning awards, clients from around the world. I bought a new place. Not a penthouse this time. A townhouse with a garden. Something I could put roots into, build a life in, fill with things that made me happy. And I was happy. Genuinely, surprisingly happy. I thought the betrayal would break me. I thought I'd never trust anyone again, never open my heart again, never believe in anything good again. But I learned something through all of it. I learned that I was stronger than I knew, that I could survive the worst betrayal and come out better on the other side. I learned to trust myself, to listen to my instincts, to never ignore red flags or make excuses for bad behavior. I learned that silence isn't weakness, that strategy beats emotion, that patience and planning can win wars. I made new friends in my new city, women who'd been through their own battles and survived. We formed a kind of unspoken sisterhood, warriors who understood each other's scars. I even dated again, eventually, carefully, cautiously, with walls up that I slowly let down for people who proved they deserved it. Nothing serious yet. Maybe someday. Or maybe not. I was complete on my own. I didn't need someone else to make me whole. My business became my passion, my purpose, my pride. Every successful project was proof that Daniel hadn't destroyed me, that his betrayal was just a chapter, not the whole story. I hired a woman once who reminded me of my younger self. Talented, ambitious, married to a man who seemed supportive. We were working late one night, and she mentioned that her husband had asked to put his name on her business accounts for tax purposes. I stopped what I was doing and looked at her. "Is your business in your name?" I asked. "Yes." "Did you build it yourself?" "Yes." "Then why does his name need to be on anything?" She hesitated. "He said it would be simpler. For filing taxes. For estate planning." "Get a lawyer," I said. "A good one. Someone who works for you, not both of you, and protect yourself. You think he's trying to... I don't know. Maybe he's exactly what he seems. But maybe he's not. And it's better to be safe. Trust me." I told her my story. Not all of it, but enough. She listened with growing horror and recognition. "I'll call a lawyer tomorrow," she said. A month later, she thanked me. Turned out, her husband had been planning something eerily similar to what Daniel had planned. She'd caught it early, protected herself, and left. "You saved me," she said. "No," I corrected. "You saved yourself. I just gave you permission to trust your instincts." That became part of my mission, helping other women see the signs I'd missed, sharing my story so they could avoid the pain I'd endured. I started speaking at events, women's business conferences, entrepreneur meetups. I'd tell my story and watch recognition dawn on faces in the audience. How many women were living my story right now? How many were married to men who saw them as ATMs instead of partners? How many were ignoring red flags because they wanted to believe in love? If I could help even one woman protect herself, it was worth reliving my pain. Daniel tried to reach out one more time, about 3 years after everything ended. An email that somehow got through my filters. "I see you're doing well," it said. "I'm happy for you. I want you to know I'm sorry for everything. I was in a dark place, and I made terrible decisions. I hope someday you can forgive me. I've changed. I'm in therapy. I'm trying to be better." I read it once, then I deleted it. Forgiveness is complex. Maybe someday I would forgive him for my own peace, but not yet. And not because he asked for it. He took my home. I took his world. But more than that, I took back my power. It's been 5 years now since that Friday when I emptied the penthouse. 5 years since I walked out on the life I'd built with Daniel and into the life I built for myself. People ask me sometimes if I regret how I handled it, if I wish I'd confronted him differently, fought less harshly, tried harder to save the marriage. The answer is no, not even a little bit. He planned to rob me, to steal everything I'd worked for, to leave me with nothing while he used my money to solve his problems. I protected myself. I fought back. I won. There's no shame in that. There's only pride. I learned that betrayal doesn't have to destroy you. It can transform you, make you wiser, stronger, more certain of your own worth. I learned that love isn't enough if it's not matched with respect, honesty, and partnership. Real partnership. Not the fake kind where one person takes and the other gives until there's nothing left. I learned that I don't need anyone to complete me. I'm complete on my own. And if someone wants to be part of my life, they need to add to it, not subtract from it. Most importantly, I learned that silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. When Daniel was planning his betrayal, he thought my quiet acceptance meant I didn't know, didn't care, didn't have the strength to fight back. But my silence was preparation. It was me gathering evidence, building my case, planning my counterattack. Quiet women don't always write the deadliest endings, but this one did. In the end, he didn't just lose a penthouse. He lost the woman who built it. He lost his marriage, his reputation, his future. He lost everything because he couldn't celebrate my success. He could only resent it and try to steal it. And me? I learned that strength doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it's silent. Sometimes revenge is simply walking away with everything you built and leaving them with nothing but the consequences of their own betrayal. I'm 43 now, 5 years older, infinitely wiser. My business is thriving. My life is full. My heart, once broken, has healed into something stronger. I don't hate Daniel anymore. I don't think about him much at all, honestly. He's a character in my past, a lesson I learned, a chapter I closed. But I remember everything, every moment of betrayal, every piece of evidence, every step of my plan. Not because I'm stuck in the past, but because remembering keeps me sharp. It keeps me from ever being that vulnerable again, that trusting, that willing to ignore warning signs. Because I want to believe in someone. I date with my eyes open now. I listen to what people do, not what they say. I trust slowly and verify everything. Some might say that's cynical. I call it self-preservation. And I'm happy, genuinely, deeply happy. More happy than I ever was with Daniel, even in the good times. Because this happiness is mine alone. Nobody can take it from me. Nobody can claim credit for it. Nobody can steal it while I'm not looking. I built this life from the ashes of the one Daniel tried to burn down, and it's better, stronger, more authentically mine. So if this story made you believe that strength doesn't always scream, if it showed you that silence can be power, that patience can be a weapon, that betrayal doesn't have to be the end of your story, then hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more. Tell me your country in the comments. Tell me your story, if you have one. Because sometimes revenge isn't about destruction. Sometimes it's about construction. Building something so beautiful, so successful, so undeniably yours, that the person who tried to tear you down has no choice but to watch you rise. Sometimes revenge is simply peace. The peace of knowing you survived. You fought. You won. And you did it all on your own terms. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for witnessing my pain and my triumph. Thank you for understanding that women don't have to scream to be powerful. We can be quiet. We can be strategic. We can be patient. And when the time is right, we can strike with precision that leaves no room for doubt. Daniel thought he knew me, thought he could predict my reactions, manipulate my emotions, control my decisions. But he didn't know me at all. He knew the version of me who loved him, who trusted him, who believed in us. He never met the version of me who was willing to fight for herself, who valued her own worth more than a failing marriage, who understood that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is walk away. That version of me was born the night I overheard his phone call, the night I realized my husband was my enemy. And that version of me won. She's still here, still fighting, still building, still proving that betrayal is just the beginning of a comeback story. So, to everyone watching this who's going through their own betrayal, their own pain, their own dark night, I see you. I've been you. And I'm here to tell you that you will survive this. You will do more than survive. You will thrive. But first, you have to fight. You have to protect yourself. You have to choose yourself over someone who chose themselves over you. And you have to be smart about it. Don't scream, don't cry. Don't give them the satisfaction of seeing you break. Go silent. Gather evidence. Build your case. Plan your exit. And when you're ready, when you have everything in place, when they think they've won strike, take back what's yours. Protect what you built. Walk away with your head high and your heart healing. Because you're not just a victim of betrayal. You're a survivor, a fighter, a phoenix rising from ashes. And your story doesn't end with their betrayal. It begins there. My name is Liana. I'm 43 years old. And I turned my husband's betrayal into my greatest triumph. This is my story. What's yours?